our Disobedient Artist Chat. Here today is Edkin from the ArtServe marketing department, who will be assisting us with the production side of this live. We have multidisciplinary artist and curator of the Disobedient exhibition, Carol Ann McFarlane, and three of the artists that participated in this show, Shiri Riggins, aka VantaBlack, Sibel Kocabasi, and Lori Pratico. So for some of you watching that didn't have the opportunity to experience this exhibition or don't know what I'm talking about, Disobedient Redefining Feminism in a Fractured Reality was or is ArtServe latest exhibition. It opened to the public on March 5th and was supposed to be on view throughout the month of March in celebration of Women's History Month. This was a curatorial collaboration between Carol and McFarlane and myself. And it offered commentaries on women's issues, from underrepresentation of women in the arts to explorations of intersectionality, gender role, beauty standards, many other topics. So Carol Ann, would you like to add some perspectives about this show?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, ArtServe. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this exhibition, to be a part of ArtServe's mission as we move into this new direction, and to take part in its vision for creating a creative community that really supports each other, as well as the artists and performers that are in our community. It was an awesome opportunity and experience to work with Sophie and to work with ArtServe. It was a lot of conversation, a lot of work to put this exhibition together and to have all of these artists participate. So I'm very happy with the way things have turned out, the people and the artists that we got to meet and work with, the conversations that we had, and I'm grateful that I got this experience. And I'm really, really happy that the artists are here to join us today to talk about their work, their missions, and how they engage with their community, support their community, and use the arts as a platform to connect to others.
That's awesome. So let's go and introduce some of the artists.
Okay. Okay. The first artist I want to introduce is VantaBlack. Everything about a Black woman is micromanaged to make others feel more comfortable, occupying the same space. Our hair has to look a certain way. We have to dress a certain way. We have to speak a certain way. Everything that makes us unique is heavily critiqued, yet we remain invisible and unheard. We adamantly champion the causes of others, but who stands by our side in solidarity? The feeling of invisibility is so prevalent among Black women that our stories should be told. This series that you can see right here on your screen is by VantaBlack, and it's the Invisible Woman series. This series includes portraits and written accounts in response to the question, tell me a time when you were made to feel invisible. So thank you, Vanta. Thank you for sharing your work with us. Most importantly, thank you for self-selecting and doing this work. It's very important. And those words that I shared with you were from Vanta herself and how she describes her work and her process. And I would just like to hear a little bit from you about the series and about this process as we go through these introductions.
Firstly, thank you guys for having me. Thank you for allowing me to participate in this exhibition. It's really different when you work with women. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that in a different way. This series is close to me because it was started based on an experience that I had at an institution where I expected to be visible, but I was rendered invisible. And I had moments where I was trying to decide how to reconcile what was happening. And so what came to me was to put it into my work. And I did. And then I realized that this wasn't isolated, that this is something that happens to Black women very frequently. We're often rendered invisible in spaces where we expect to be seen. And a lot of times, how you present yourself is micromanaged, but anything other than that is ignored. Hold on, baby. Hold on. I'll deal with it in a second, okay? All right. So, that's my daughter. So I decided to collaborate with other Black women and hear from them. And the women that I asked, some of them, I was surprised that they wanted to participate. These women come from all different walks of life and were very open to sharing their experiences with me. And the difficulty with them was choosing one story to tell. So we we work together, and I am thankful for those women sharing their stories with me and allowing me to share their stories with others.
Thank you.
No problem.
That's awesome. So I have a question for Venta.
What's up?
So I want to know a little bit about the creative process behind the Invisible Black Women series. How do you go from having the letter or like the text, the actual answer, and transfer that into an actual artwork?
Mhm.
And what happens in between? And why this medium? Why pencil and paper?
So the process is different with each collaborator. Each woman that I collaborate with, the process is different based on what I know about the woman. So I shared this series. You have to ignore my children. They don't care about my life. And this is what happens when you are a working parent. You kind of have to tune out children. So I approached these women. I told them about this series, and some women responded immediately and wanted to be a part of it, and some women wanted to hear more about what I was doing. Right. So the women that were very brave initially, uh, how they shared their story was different. Hold on, baby. Just give me 1 second, okay? So some women chose to call me. Some women chose to email me, and some women, we just had a dialogue and I took notes. So half of the women are people that are local, and then the other women are from all over the country. And another part of that process was me building upon this relationship that I have with them and searching through images, because I didn't allow these women to choose the images. The women that are not local, I chose an image from their social media. The women that are local, I took photographs of them. And so that process being distinct for each woman, when I look at the work, I'm taken back to that experience. And then I chose this medium because I've always been intrigued by someone's face and then telling someone's story visually. So I choose pencil. Hold on, baby. Go in the room with the brother. Go in there and talk to him. Go ahead, baby. Go ahead. Go ahead. We'll talk in a second. So I chose pencil because it is something that's almost like intimate. It's intimate to work in pencil. And then I chose to work on black paper because it's a reversal of how you typically create as an artist. So not only am I dealing with this background and having light shown on this face, but then form on this surface also. And I just think that it's the best way for me to do exactly what I intend to do. I want to capture my audience. I want them to know, I want them to want to know who these women are and what they have to say.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay. Ed, do we have some comments from Facebook?
Okay.
Right now, we do not.
Okay. Let me see. I think I have a question. I want to know how was it for the women that participated in this project after answering your question about when was that time that they felt invisible? Like, did they report some sort of emotion or healing, liberation? Like, how was it for them to go through that process of also opening up and let it out?
So let me speak specifically about individual women. So one of the women, her name is Monty. She actually called me because she had been thinking about participating, and what she shared with me was not what I expected to hear. She shared with me something very personal, an experience that was very traumatic for her, and just that process of sharing it, we were able to reach attempt to reach some sort of healing just in that dialogue. And she told me she hadn't spoken about it in a very long time. So I felt honored that she decided to share it with me and giving me the permission to share it with others. So most of the time I try to have the dialogue first, because that dialogue informs how I create the work, right? So I thought about what she shared with me as I created her portrait. Also, another woman that I included in the series, her name is Lonnie Johnson. She she is one of my best friends, and I've known her for nearly three decades. So I had to kind of, hound her to get her to share with me something like this. And when she did, she was reluctant, but when she did, it became a longer dialogue. And it kind of recentered me and her. And then I put that into the work. Even though this is someone I've known more than half my life, that experience she shared with me, I did not know about. So she had to dig deep to share that, and to allow me to share it with others. And then we were sharing this experience with one another, because it was something that I could relate to, being a Black female artist, and then that is present in the actual work.
We've got questions and comments on Facebook. Shout out to a lot of people who love your work. Amanda Kovac says, love VantaBlack's work, genuine, masterful, and deep, with a heart emoji. So we love hearing a comment like that. We've got a comment and a question from Tom Jones. Tom Jones, thank you for being part of this broadcast. He says that he loves hearing the children in the background, and says that it's so authentic, and the way you deal with your children is so authentic. And so, good job. And so,
Thank you, Tom.
he has a question that says, and this is for the curators. Curators, how did this exhibition and your work with these great artists impact you creatively and personally? And if you could respond to that. And while I've got you, any other people who are watching, please feel free to write into a comment or a question on Facebook Live. Take it away, Sophie.
All right. So you want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, there was a lot of investigation um, behind this exhibition, months of research, and when I called Carol and I invited her to be part of this process because her work is all about intersectional feminism. She has vast knowledge of feminist perspectives, and at that point, I wasn't. My background is in anthropology. I do have notions of feminism, but I wasn't so involved, and I wanted to learn. And as we progress into this curatorial process, during the investigations, meeting with the artists, interviewing artists, most of the artists were amazingly generous. They welcomed us in their studios. They shared their stories. We laughed, we cried, and something started to happen to me that I started to realize that I started to identify situations where I felt dismissed, or I felt invisible. And the thing is, when we cannot name what happened to us, we ended up we always end up suppressing, right? We end up internalizing everything. So me being able to understand, okay, what, and compare myself to other women's experiences and be able to identify, it was liberating for me. It was a great experience on a personal level, and curatorial, well, professionally, because I think this is the first exhibition that I've curated with ArtServe that it has given me the voice to actually produce meaningful work, like work at this level, and also experience this level of collaboration with another women and another female artist. So that was pretty powerful for me. So now, Carol Ann, I will let
Thank
you talk.
you. Thank you. For me, the change that I experienced first as an artist, like actually now stepping into a curatorial role, totally guided by Sophie. So I had an opportunity to see what it was like as a curator, to choose the artist, to visit the artist, to actually get in depth with each artist, to know them and then to know their work. And putting the whole exhibition together. So that was one part of the exhibition. And then also having the opportunity to work with Sophie, have the conversations. We had a lot of conversations about different things, and being able to identify experiences and ideas and put them together. And it was like a wonderful experience to be a part of, and also observe Sophie's transformation as well. And then working with the artists to see that they are all doing the work. Everybody is notching away at these big problems that we have in our communities, and are so confident in their work and how their work is able to transform others. And being able to put this show together, it's like, here in our community, we are the ones that are doing the work. So we can self-identify and acknowledge all of our backgrounds, all of our experiences, all of our viewpoints, and our triumphs, our wins, and our personal power and the power that we have to affect the community. So that's all the change that we had, that I experienced creating this exhibition.
Hey guys, we got another comment on Facebook from G Wright, and she says, the reception for this exhibition was one of the last events I attended before all this social distancing. So glad it was in person. And it was such a great exhibition. I think she was moved a lot. A lot of people were moved because of the great work you did.
Thank you.
So I would like to introduce the second artist that we have. I would like to introduce Sibel Kocabasi. She is a multidisciplinary visual artist working in painting, photography, installation art. Her work addresses contemporary social concerns from environmental issues, migration to violence against women across cultures, including the suppression of the female identity. She was born in Turkey and raised in Istanbul, and she lives now in South Florida. She has a great curatorial experience, and her work has been exhibited nationally, internationally, and she has also many years of experience as an educator. So I would like to show some of Sibel's works that are part of the Disobedient exhibition. This photographic series is titled "And God Created Women with Her." Sibel, can you tell us a little bit about the concept behind this work? Sibel?
Yes. Okay. So the hair became, when I started working on women's issues, which was something, as I was explaining in my statement as well, it was emotional for me to bring those experiences when I grew up in my country. So when I start committed to be an artist and start working on women issues, it became challenging. How can I form this concept to region I live here in Florida? So it was like, would it be understood? It was like conflict situation, but I had to give it a chance, and I continue working on. And which is when I see the exhibition, it was a different experiences each artist had about women. So it was like, again, I was like thinking that it is regional. I still believe that. And for this, hair became symbolic in some point, and also again is the cultural experiences, and still some cultures are experiencing in some special regions, and now it's all over the world. And for me, I think if the culture want to keep the tradition, accept the woman, accept the hair, it's not supposed to show, but it's I don't agree with it just because of woman's pressure on it. So if is and whole world should cover their hair, it's not fair for only for a woman. So it became for me the symbolic, also not just hair, and how domestic violence, how other suppressed issues been covered, especially by women. I think my work mainly about how women treat other women and how women have role as a woman in the world. So I think is a very powerful. The women have powerful role, even because they accept and they continue this traditional roles to next generations. So my point was like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you grew up in an overly conservative culture. You mentioned to me that you have to frequently remind yourself to no longer hesitate to reveal issues about the mistreatment of women while witnessing the same taboos over and over. even more aggressive now than before. So do you feel that your artistic practice has contributed to that detachment or of some sort of liberation from radical traditions, like in your personal case?
Yes, but yes, I did. Yes or no, I can say this because I reached the point aesthetically I'm very comfortable, but also because I don't think my work is understood in this because it's a different culture, because it's kind of unknown how is possible how women must cover their hair. So if the work, travels virtually or physically, then I can see maybe the reactions. But here, I didn't have much conversation with other artists or other viewer since I've been showing my work. And people, I think, feels a little bit like sad about it when they look at my work, which is kind of unknown. I don't think, maybe I'm not, anyway. So, yeah.
I think, the purpose of this exhibition was to induce self-reflection and self-evaluation.
Yeah.
And I think your work does that, but I have a question about, like, one of the elements that I found very present in your work is the use of fabric. So can you tell us a little bit about, like, the symbolic representation of the fabric in general in your work, but mainly in this series, like, and God Created Women with Hair?
Yeah, I think that especially that work, I wanted to exaggerate the hair, so it was covered completely, no face. I wanted to exaggerate the hair and also exaggerate the layers of fabric. And fabric is in our lives in many ways. It's not just, this is very, very symbolic piece. Yes, it's particularly face and hair and a fabric, but also it's in many ways how women expressed by themselves and by what they believe, by their environment or social pressure. Or so it's like also fabric is like we identify ourselves, what we were. We can immediately recognize each other through fashion, whatever we were, color, shape of our fabric all over our bodies. This is like kind of, it's not part of our life, it is our life. But also fabric in the meantime can be beautiful too. So it's like when I start using fabric, it was pure black. Then I moved on from, because it's also like we still have hope for it, and it could be beautiful. It can represent something beautiful. And it could be many messages through however we use it, fabric, in our lives. Yeah.
Thank you, Sibel.
Hey, we have a question that came in on Zoom, and I don't know, this question just came in, so I don't know if this was in relation to the whole panel or specifically for Sibel, but I will ask it anyway. This comes from Crystal, and she's asking on Zoom, how do you define feminism? Who wants to take that one?
I think we should all answer that question.
Yeah, I think, can I say something while I was talking in it? I think it's like the feminism, I want to adopt the name equalism. So I want to bring from feminism, yes, that was an era, we had to go through the whole era of feminism. I think now we can start maybe change the word equalism more. Because we moved on from a lot of things since last 50 years or 100 years. So that's what I want to say. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll tackle that question. I agree with Sibel. But I also think that, you know, when feminism and the feminists that really kind of paved the way to equality, it was and still is a white man's world. And women rose up and tried to change that, and change did come. But the Black woman's struggle, the Arab woman's struggle, the, you know, lesbian woman's struggle, the younger versus older woman's struggle. There's so many different nuances to being a woman and what a woman is defined as. So you can't just look at it as traditional, how we used to define feminism as being equality for women. It's equality for all women, for all people, for all, you know, it's always been about, we just want the same rights as men. We want to have the same opportunities. We want to have and be given the same privileges and rights as our male counterparts. But that has carried over now to it not just being a women thing, it's an everyone thing. And it's all kinds of women. So that's my take on that.
There's actually a comment on Facebook about that from Amanda Kovach. And Amanda, thank you so much for writing a comment. Her comment says, women empowering women take so many forms. Sharing knowledge, sharing space, and lifting voices is power. Amazing job, Carol Ann and Sophie. So that is a powerful comment, and I think that speaks right to what you were saying as well, Lori.
100%.
Thank you, Amanda.
So I think we should introduce Lori now. Let's talk about Lori's work.
Okay, so let's talk about Lori. Okay. Let me go ahead and share her images. Okay. So, Lori Pratico, Ladder of Intent, by Lori, creator of Girl Notice Inc. Do you think about the people watching? Does your baggage weigh down? Will you risk your ego, step past your fears, and persist until you reach your goal? Will you act with the intention or simply react? Your choice. At the age of 7, I was fearless. Jumped from the highest step, climbed the biggest tree, scraped knees. No one messes with my kind of kid. I'm not exactly sure when it happened, but looking back, I can understand why. Why this wide-eyed, hopeful, full of spirit and guts kid all of a sudden was afraid of everything. I suppose it was because of the steps I used to jump from also led me to the house where I never quite felt good enough. My accomplishments seemed insignificant and my dreams were dismissed. It happened when suddenly my changing body brought up tension that was neither asked for nor wanted and left me feeling ashamed and small. I was a lucky one because although these things held me back, making me doubt myself, finding myself in situations where I was influenced too easily in an attempt to find acceptance I was so desperately seeking, my spirit never completely died. I was a lucky one because a handful of special people in my life recognized my thoughts and dreams and validated my ideas. They believed in me, so my hopes stayed alive. Not all of these girls are so lucky. Some will have their spirit and hope ripped from them at an early age, never to realize their full potential. Others, it will happen later in life. Maybe when they've reached an age where their bodies begin to change again and their value and self-worth is now dismissed by society and in demands to be a young, perfect artist. Demands of being young and perfect. A society that demands you look and act a specific way, all in an attempt to fit an impossible mold. They may never have the people in their life that took the time to notice, or they may never have the spirit and hope left to celebrate their 7-year-old self. It is the time we notice what makes every girl extraordinary, because every girl or woman is left unnoticed is a day too long. Lori, do you want to share a little bit about your Girl Notice project, the artwork you create, and then how did you get from painting on canvas to a conceptual interactive piece?
Thank you, Carol Ann. And boy, you were given the task of reading all that. You did a good job, thank you. So Girl Noticed is a nonprofit that I founded and created 5 years ago. I am a portrait artist. Portraits have just always been what I've drawn. It's really the figure and the human face, the human is what drives my work. I knew that I had something to say with my work, and I was trying to figure out how to say it. And I decided murals would be the best way to do that, because they're big, they're loud, and a lot of people can see them. So I started doing large charcoal murals of girls and women of all ages that were nominated from their community to be noticed. And I've been to 15 states where these girls and women are nominated right from their community. They're drawn large on the wall. They are in charcoal, so they fade off the wall. And the whole point is that you have a window of time to notice the qualities and what a girl values in herself or a woman values in herself before it might go away or never materialize into anything, and can just fade away. So I've been very fortunate to do this project, and really it's grown over the last 5 years. I've seen the difference it can make. I see communities come together and rally around their women. I've seen young Black girls walk across a large lot where I'm doing a mural of 4 colored women, and they are like, wow, I've never seen myself on the wall like that. I've never been represented in such a beautiful light. And that was what was really important to me, was representing these girls and women in a way where typically murals are either going to be of a fictional character or they're going to be of someone famous that we all know. And these were people right from their community. And the whole point is to look at them and then relate to them. And that's what my portrait work, whether it be on canvas or whether it be on a wall, really is about. It's about looking at it, and it makes you think, and it makes you think about yourself, and it has that impact of really thought of where, who are you, and who do you want to be, and who can you become. So as far as the ladder of intent that was in the show, I have to thank ArtServe for that. And both you and Sophie, Carol Ann and Sophie, because one thing ArtServe, I've been part of ArtServe since I started my art career a little over 15 years ago. And one of the things ArtServe has always provided me is freedom of expression. And they've always trusted my vision. And I've never had to really go super far in saying this is exactly what I'm going to do. I could conceptually tell the leaders at ArtServe what was on my mind and that I wanted to express that, and they gave me the freedom to do that. And this show is no different. It's the first time I've ever done an installation piece, and it was a lot of fun. And I actually can't wait to use the ladder for my murals. So I think that'll be cool. And that's pretty much it.
So the Ladder of Intent was definitely one of the most popular pieces in this exhibition, especially during the opening night. Everyone wanted to climb the ladder. People from all ages. Like, were you expecting that level of engagement and excitement when you were like, just thinking about this project for the first time?
Well, I was so certainly hoping for it. And I tried to make it interesting enough. So you can kind of tell from the photos, it was very interactive. There's actually luggage that's bungee cord to the ladder that was supposed to symbolize our baggage that we carry along with us. Each step of the ladder encouraged you to climb to the next step. It said something on there that said, take the step, you let go of your fears, those kind of things. And it's funny, I'm on a ladder all the time and I have no fear of ladders, but a lot of people are really afraid of ladders. They're afraid to go up a couple steps. And it was kind of cool to see people that were a little shaky, but did it anyway, because at the top of the ladder, as you can see, there's a magnifying glass. And when you looked through the magnifying glass, you had to look through the magnifying glass to see the message that was hanging from the ceiling, which was an extremely small print. And when it was magnified, it basically said, don't focus on the small stuff. Like, see like what is holding you back? What are the little things that are holding you back? See the world as a bigger place that you can become a part of. It was pretty much the message of the whole piece. So yeah, it was thrilling to see people having fun with it and participating. And I love the photos. And yeah, it always feels good when people interact with your art and they get what you were trying to do. I think that's for me as an artist, the greatest gift I get as an artist is when somebody really gets my work and knows why I did what I did. One
of the people who were on that ladder is Zephora, and she's on Facebook right now.
Oh, awesome.
The ladder is an adventure. And Lori, there's another question, this one from Diane, and we want to thank Diane for writing in on Facebook. And we want to say, she says, this question is for Lori. What drives you to stay so passionate about your nonprofit and your artwork?
That's a great question, Diane. I think it's the need. I decided to teach something that I needed to be taught. And I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing when I started the project. I knew that I wanted to, I thought that because people had in my life, a teacher specifically in my life had made me feel good about myself. And there were people that made me forget about kind of like what was expected of me and made me believe in myself. I thought if I could just do that for one person. But as the project started to take off and I started going from state to state and doing this and more people were coming together and getting involved, I started to realize I really didn't have a whole lot of self-worth. I really did still, my self-image was still pretty poor. The way I treated my own body and treated myself was not a healthy thing. Honestly, I was an alcoholic, and I, through this project and standing in front of 200 some girls and telling them that they needed to value themselves, realizing that, I was going to go get a drink afterwards, made me really say, wow, you really need to look at yourself. And I've been sober for over 3 years now. And so, you know, it's that need of we just, as women as a whole and as young girls, I want to teach young girls that, you know, they are valuable. Every single woman, no matter what she is doing in society, is valuable to her society, whether she's a stay-at-home mom or she's an attorney or she's whatever she is, and she's valuable in her society. And we need to treat our women as though they are valued in society. And that's really what drives me to keep going with it.
Thank you, Lori.
Yeah.
So I know we have a question in Zoom, and this one is for Venta. Is the title Invisible Black Women Project a play on Invisible Man by Ellison?
That's a really good question. You know, it's not, even though there are parallels there. I think, you know, this was born from an experience that I had that I knew other Black women could relate to. This is about Black women being rendered invisible. And there are other people who can relate to that, but I wanted to tell this story because I knew that what happened to me wasn't unique to me. And even when Carol Ann and Sophie came to visit me in my studio, which is my home, we had a dialogue about that. And I know just by looking at Carol Ann that she could relate. And I've noticed that as I exhibit this work, I haven't found one Black woman who cannot relate. That is, that's very telling. And there are so many different instances that you look back on and you realize what it did to you long term. And then, I'm sorry, this is, I'm kind of running on, but I tend to do that. The dialogues that have come out of me just discussing this title and where it came from, it's made some women realize that they were rendered invisible without even, you know, realizing it in the moment. And then there's a conversation about, okay, the person who's rendering you invisible, what if they don't intend to do that? It does not matter. If my experience is that you don't see me, then you rendered me invisible. So we can have that dialogue. We can have the dialogue as someone who's experienced it and then someone who's doing it. And yeah, that's what it came from. Sorry, that was a really long answer to that question. Good question though.
Hey, Ed, do we have more questions from Facebook?
Actually, yes, but before we get to that, what I'd like everybody to know out there is that you are watching ArtServe Live, and you can now stream this. And what's great is that you are watching the Artist Talk Online. This is called Let's Talk Feminism from the Disobedient Show. And we've got a great panel here. And what we ask you to do is check out our offerings on Facebook. Go to ArtServe on Facebook and check us out. We have a whole host of programming just like this, just like the show that you're seeing today. And we ask you, please support ArtServe. If you like this kind of programming and you think the arts are vital, then we ask you to help us support the creative economy. During this time of isolation, so many people have retreated into their homes to the arts, music, films, and podcasts, and broadcasts just like this. And if you want us to keep bringing you quality programming, we want your support to help us advance the arts for social good. And I want to get back to this program. And I think Sophie had asked if there were any more questions. And yes, there are more questions. First of all, there's a comment. While you guys were talking, Zephora did say how nervous she was because she wore shoes with no grip that day when she was up on the ladder. And that's pretty hilarious.
Zephora is also one of the artists that is exhibiting in this exhibition with amazing, powerful work. And I just want to say, this is just the first artist chat that we do with the artists of Disobedient. We're planning to keep having these conversations, and hopefully, by the end of the month, all 26 of the artists that participated in this show will have the opportunity to just talk about their work. And also we're working on creating some sort of virtual tour of the show. I know that we cannot get out of the house right now, but we're just exploring ways to do that. So hopefully, Caroline and we can just make it happen somehow. Okay, sorry.
We do have a comment. I'm sorry, a question on Facebook. This is from Katiana, and I'm so pleased for this question. What in life brought you to work involving feminism? I know most artists create work from a personal perspective. Who on the panel wants to take that one?
Go ahead.
I'll take it.
Yeah, take it.
That's a really good question, Katiana. Thank you. I always, as a creative person, I've always had something to say. And what has changed throughout my career is what I'm talking about. And I think there was a major shift in what I chose to talk about in college, because I saw for the first time very clearly how differently I was treated because of all the labels attached to me, right? Mm-hmm. And then I started to put that into my work. That's where I express myself, as many of us do, because for a very long time I couldn't express myself. So I put it into my work. So I started to see the difference in treatment of women within the world of art. And then it became just plain to see once I entered into the professional realm of the visual arts. And that's why so much of my work is geared towards telling stories of women and telling experiences that I have had. Because I think it's important to do that. You're in a space that's dominated by a particular group. And if you get into that space, you have to speak very loudly. And that is something that drives me. It keeps me focused and centered every time I pick up my pencil to create.
Can I add something?
Thank you, Vanta. Anybody else want to answer that question?
I would like to add something. It was very interesting to hear Vanta. Thank you. But also, it was kind of because you still live in the country, but I'm not there anymore. That was interesting while listening to you, Vanta. And I'm not there anymore. And I realized, since I'm living in another country, and it was kind of realization during the years that how much we observe the culture, we observe the personality, become your own personality, the abuse and all how women and girls been treated. And so how it was kind of challenging through as an artist, it really helped me a lot, that kind of do the separation from being human and not just that abused woman or girl anymore. So I'm not there anymore. It's interesting to have, I don't know what I will do if I was still there. But I think it gave me more freedom to and strength, and became more strong as an artist and as a woman. Yep.
Thank you. So,
Just
I have a couple questions. If we don't have any more from Facebook.
No, you're good to go.
Okay, so one of my questions for the artist is, how do you equip yourself to do this work?
I'll take that one. So, you know, I talked a little bit about the fact that I had to really look at myself and look and self-examine. And that's a lot of how I equip myself to do the work that I do. I do a lot of reading. I look a lot into the history of women and what women have done as artists for us already. And I draw upon those experiences, and I draw upon the fact that, you know, I look at where I can still grow. And I do a lot of self-development. And that shows, I think, a lot in my work. As I grow, my work seems to mature as well. And it's interesting because now I'm kind of entering into a phase of being older, where my body can't do as much as it always could. I never had, when I was 18 years old, out of high school in Philadelphia, I went to work for a billboard company, climbing billboards in Philly. And I was the only female in Philadelphia doing that at the time. And my body had no problem with that. My body could handle that. Doing the murals that I do, climbing ladders for 8 hours straight, painting for 10 to 12 hours straight, sometimes for days on end. My body's never had a problem with that. And now I'm moving into an area where I don't recover as quickly as I used to. So, you know, that's something I am going to have to deal with. And so I'm preparing myself mentally and physically for that, of what's the next phase. You know, I'm still going to want to speak with my artwork. I'm still going to want to do what I'm doing. Do I start mentoring younger girls to do what I'm doing so that they can carry on the voice? I mean, you know, I think it's a lot of just being introspective and realizing where I'm at in life, taking one day at a time and saying, okay, this is what I can do today, and doing the best I can do at that. So.
Thank you. I see we have a question here in Zoom. It's coming from Jill. It says, how can we help young girls today feel empowered, especially when we still haven't been able to elect a woman president? Anybody want to take that one?
I'll real quick with that, and then so somebody else can answer as well. You know, we have to be the example. You know, to me, the young girls look at us as their example. So they have the example of a Hillary Clinton. They have the example of the women that have been that ran in this race, that maybe they didn't get to be get to be elected, but we're setting examples every single day for these young girls. And that to me is what's really important, is that they see that we're continuing to fight, we're continuing to move forward. We can't go, you know, unfortunately, we've gone backwards with a lot of things as of late. But in moving backwards, it opens up a perspective of how far did we really get if we could move backwards that quickly. So, you know, we can't be complacent. We can't say, I've had so many women that have come up, men come up when I'm doing my project, men come up and they're like, this is so great. I want to show my daughters. This is amazing. I'm going to bring my daughters so they can see it. And a woman will come up and say to me, do we need to do this? And I'm like, what world are you living in? You know, but there are a lot of women that don't think that it's necessary for us to even talk about feminism or talk about these issues. They think everything's good now. And it's not, you know, so it's about having the conversations like we're having here and doing something, like continuing to do something. So it's my 2 cents, maybe 3.
Thank you.
I agree that we can be role models for new generation.
Is there any more questions from Facebook?
Actually, I wanted to give Sibel the opportunity to finish what she was just saying there.
Okay.
I jumped in. I was agree that we only can just be model for the next generations. That's the only way how we became the model of our previous generations. So I think we are in the middle, an amazing time for the human history, because we are in the transition from the old to new, and we saw in my generation, we saw a lot from what happened, and now we're going to very fast and technologically and educationally totally a different generations and lives coming in front of us. So we have actually very you know, important roles to teach the other coming generations. And I see new girls are very powerful, and new young females are much more educated, much more smarter, understand. I mean, again, when you look at all over the world, I can't give you the numbers, but in general, what I'm observing, its change is here already. So I'm very hopeful for the future. So we had the heavy in our shoulders, but it's okay. I think that was our mission, maybe.
Yeah, being hopeful, you know, is great, but we do have to do the work. We do have to have those conversations.
I can't hear you.
You know, I'm a mom. I'm a mother. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and we want to be able to have this conversation with our daughters, you know, young women, be able to talk about women's issues in general, and be able to have an honest conversation and feel compassion.
It's possible that we're having technical difficulty with Sophie's audio. And while we work to fix that, I'm going to jump in with a question from Facebook. Diane has written on Facebook. Thank you, Diane, for writing in. What upcoming projects do you have in keeping women as the focus? And who would like to take that one?
I can. So, personally, I have a couple different series that are in motion at the same time that I work on. This body of work is The Invisible Black Woman. Then I have a body of work where I focus on victims of gun violence, and I tell their stories. It is a project I've been working on for 4 years now through portraiture. And I also have a series of portraits of prominent female figures from Florida. And I'm broadening that scope to include prominent female figures from beyond Florida and highlighting their impact through portraiture and written text about each woman, because I really want to focus on the lack of inclusion of women in many different stories. And through this body of work where I told the stories of victims of gun violence, I've become very close to mothers of victims. So that has inspired me to tell their stories of survival. I actually collaborated with a parent of a victim, and her name is Serena Saul. She's included in this series at ArtServe, and she is a spoken word artist. And she told me her story, and I encouraged her to share her story of grief with others. And so we collaborated that way, and we're looking to collaborate more in the future. And I hope to have dialogues with women affected by this type of trauma, and to give them a space to express their grief and to talk about how society deals with grief and who's allowed to grieve and who's not. So yeah, I'm working on that. Great question.
Awesome.
Sophie, do you want to give it another shot? Can we hear your audio really quick?
Do you guys hear me?
Oh, loud and clear. And just to let you know,
What happened?
there were about 7 or 8 comments on Facebook. So people wanted to hear you. So let's give them the opportunity to hear you right now.
I think I was saying, you know, I don't remember. I think I was answering one of the questions about we do have to be hopeful, but at the same time, we do have to do the work. We have to be able to have those difficult conversations. I'm a mom. I have a teenager daughter, and you know, we have to be able to sit down and have an honest face-to-face conversation. We need to be able to talk about women's issues and gender and sex and, you know, basic stuff. You know, how is it possible that in today's world, in you know, the school system, they don't have sex education class? You know, it's just like we're still living in a world where we cannot talk freely about our own sexuality, you know, and this is just an example. But you know, as an artist, curators, creatives, art is our language, and this exhibition is our contribution to the conversation. You know, if you had the opportunity to see the show, it exposed social political structures while promoting the dialogue and evolving interchange around gender, sexuality, culture, and you know, it just gave language to those collective experiences, to create internal dialogue and self-reflection and self-evaluation. So yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say.
We have a comment on Facebook that says that we cannot be complacent. We have another comment coming from Jill on Zoom, and I'm so glad we have people on Zoom. We are still fighting for the same issues today. Roe v. Wade hangs in the balance. Women all over the world are in the same place from 50 years ago.
Carol, do we have more questions?
Yes. Yes, there's one more question from Crystal on Zoom. her question is, do you think that as a woman, your work is inherently feminist?
I do. It's funny because when one of the other questions was about how does feminism kind of come out in our work, and I thought, well, I'm a female, so I think that it just is kind of a natural thing because my work is definitely my voice. It is an expression of myself. So that feminine quality is I think it's going to be who I am, my work. So you're going to see it in some way. So yes, I would just say for me, definitely.
Thank you. Anybody else want to tackle that answer? Question? I want to open it up to the artists. And do you guys have any questions for each other?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Vanta, we need to work together. I really enjoy how your work is about the story. I'm right now doing a new project called A People Forgot, and it's had to kind of been put a little bit on hold because of everything going on, but it recognizes women of the Holocaust and surviving women of the Holocaust, which there are estimated 1,000 in Broward County. And I've sat down and listened to their stories, and it's been amazing. And I'm actually doing some pieces at home on canvas of the women, since I wasn't able to do the mural and what I had planned to do. But it's been really, the artwork I'm producing is very different than what I normally would produce. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I really sat down and listened to the story.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like, I think sometimes I assume to know the story, and I don't always really listen. So that's been really amazing. I'd love to get together with you.
We should really talk about that because, you know, I think sometimes artists, we lose sight of the connection to the people we collaborate with and how that informs and changes your work. Because I tell people frequently that in these, I have in my, in the stories of victims of gun violence, I've told over 200 stories, right? When I look at each portrait, I know where I was emotionally when I was creating that work. And that's what I want to hold on to, because I don't want the work to look manufactured or inauthentic. Right. So I have to salvage my authenticity, and I have to connect to anyone whose story you're telling. You have to connect to that person. And artists have to connect to one another also, because I think that we have a responsibility. Even, I don't know if it's more so now. I feel like I've always had a sense of urgency to talk about what's going on around me. And what's happening now is just something different. And I think that in this space, in what's happening now, I want to spend more time dialoguing with artists about what we are going through in this space, like what's happening now and how it's affecting us creatively. Creatively. What's going on with me? My brain. It's like like one ear is over here listening to my kids, trying to keep track of them. Then I'm listening to outside, and then I'm trying to listen here. So, and that's something that we have to do as artists too, to be in all these different spaces. And I think that it's important for us to now not pressure ourselves into producing and creating. If you're not in the space to create, dialogue with other artists. Talk about what you're going through, you know, and that'll maybe lead to something. you know? So yeah, we should get together. We should talk.
Definitely.
Yes. I'm down. All of us. You too, Sibel. Yes.
So guys, it's 7:22. Like, we have run out of time.
All right.
I just want to say thank you, Vanta, Sibel, Lori, Carol Ann, and also to all the 26 artists that participated in this exhibition.
Mm-hmm.
Your stories changed my life. Like, I am a different person. I am a better person because of this process. And everyone, just stay tuned. The entire ArtServe team is working really, really hard to bring you this type of digital artistic experiences. So there's more coming, and the conversation will continue.
Mm-hmm.
Carol Ann, some final question or something.
Well, there's one comment in the Q&A. Crystal says, "Thank you, Vanta, love for your work." So she's acknowledging that she really appreciates the work that you're doing. I guess in the community as well.
Thank you.
And then Jill says, "Thank you for such an amazing event." I want to say thank you to ArtServe for making this possible for us to be able to have this opportunity to curate this exhibition, to bring these artists together. So not only do we know who we are, that we know who each other are, as far as all of the artists that are here locally that participated. And we can see that we're not alone in this work. And I want to thank all the artists for being here. I want to thank Sophie for being awesome. I thank ArtServe for being consistent in their mission to reach out to artists and give them a platform and a space to share their work and to reach out into the community so that we can continue to have important conversations that build and strengthen us all.
Mm-hmm.